Let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at a truly remarkable story about a young boy named Arjun. And honestly, it's just this deeply inspiring journey of long-term problem solving. This isn't just a story about, pouring concrete and engineering. It's a profound look at how seemingly impossible obstacles can literally be dismantled over time through the sheer force of education and delayed gratification. If you've ever looked at a massive problem in your community or even just in your own life and thought, man, I don't even have the tools to start fixing this, well, this explainer is absolutely going to reframe how you think about solutions.
So, right off the bat, we've got to ask ourselves the core question that drives this entire narrative. Can a poor village boy really build a multi-ton concrete bridge? On its face, it sounds completely crazy, right? No way. We naturally assume that massive infrastructure projects belong exclusively to wealthy governments, big corporations, or heavily funded experts. A child with zero resources? They don't even factor into the equation. But what we're going to discover together is that the real foundation of a concrete bridge isn't actually made of concrete at all. It's made of accumulated knowledge. Let's look at exactly how that happens. Section 1. The Dangerous River, the village's daily struggle. Year after year, this village lived with a really stark contrast. Picture this. It's summer, the river is totally calm, everyone crosses safely, and life just goes on normally. But then, bam, the rainy season arrives, and that exact same body of water transforms into a rushing, incredibly dangerous hazard. The old wooden boat the village relied on, it would constantly break down. And the immediate consequence of this was that dozens of children, including Arjun, were literally forced to miss school for weeks at a time. It's your classic systemic problem, right? A geographical barrier directly interrupting the education and progress of an entire community. Now, a systemic problem usually requires some kind of inciting incident to spark real change. And that happens on one particularly nasty rainy morning. Arjun watches an elderly man slip right into the rushing, dangerous water while trying to cross. Now, thankfully, the villagers were able to pull him out and rescue him. But Arjun couldn't forget the sheer terror painted on everyone's faces. I mean, it's one thing to miss a few days of school. It is an entirely different thing to watch your community live in absolute fear of their own geography. This is the exact moment the river stops being just a mild inconvenience and becomes a life-or-death crisis that demands a solution. Section 2. A bold promise. Facing the skeptics. That very night, looking out at the river from his window, Arjun makes this quiet but just absolutely massive vow. He whispers, "One day I'll build a bridge here." It's a fascinating psychological pivot when you think about it. He is fully acknowledging the massive scale of the problem, but instead of throwing his hands up and succumbing to helplessness, he projects himself into the future as the active solution. Of course, social friction immediately followed his vow. A lot of the villagers smiled politely, but some outright laughed in his face, telling him, you're just a poor village boy, right? Bridges are built by rich engineers. And you can't really blame them. They were totally constrained by their current reality and resources. But here's the kicker. Arjun doesn't get angry. He doesn't try to debate them. Instead, he handles their doubt by focusing entirely on his studies. He realizes pretty quickly that you cannot win an argument about the future using the limitations of the present. Section 3. The path of trials, the process of learning. So how does a kid actually start? Well, Arjun turns his lack of resources into a starting line. He borrows old math, science, and engineering books from the town library and just starts building. His whole process becomes this perfect miniature model of the scientific method. First, he builds tiny bridges using literally whatever he can find: sticks, rope, cardboard, bamboo, the whole shebang. Then he tests them over small streams and carefully observes what happens. And yeah, some models collapsed, some floated away, others snapped right in half. But he learns from the failure and iterates. He proved to himself that every single time a model failed, it wasn't a defeat. It was a highly valuable data point teaching him exactly what not to do next time. And we really see this dedication snowball over the years. He starts off as a village boy with a crazy idea, transitions into his teenage years defined by intense self-study and those little stick models we talked about, and all that dedication unlocks the next phase. He earns a civil engineering scholarship for his college years. Now, this wasn't a walk in the park. He struggled with money, ground through part-time jobs, and stayed up way too late studying. But he never, ever forgot that river. And finally, all of that compounded effort leads to his adult years, where he successfully becomes a professional bridge engineer. Section 4. The bridge completed, returning home. Fast forward years later, and Arjun makes the journey back to his village. But this time, he returns carrying blueprints instead of school books. All those hypothetical theories he studied for years, They are finally transitioning into physical reality. The villagers gather around, the heavy construction begins, and after months of grueling labor, a strong, multi-ton concrete bridge finally stretches across that dangerous river. And the ripple effect here is just huge. We can clearly see the real-world impact of his education. The changes to the community are nothing short of staggering. First up, kids can now walk safely to school in every single season, which completely solves the exact problem he faced as a child. Second, farmers can transport their crops without any delays, which massively boosts the local economy. Third, ambulances can actually reach the village quickly, completely eliminating that life-or-death panic caused by the river. And fourth, new business growth and opportunities start flooding in. This bridge didn't just cross water, it connected an isolated village to the modern world.
Section 5. Tomorrow's Solutions, the core lesson.
So the very same people who once laughed at Arjun are now standing proudly on this bridge, shaking his hand and thanking him. And when a little boy looks up and asks how he built something so amazing, Arjun delivers this incredibly powerful truth. He says, "I didn't build this bridge in one day. I built it every day I chose to learn." I mean, wow, that is the ultimate testament to delayed gratification. The physical bridge is really just the final visible manifestation of thousands of invisible days spent reading, failing, testing, and studying. Which brings us to the true core lesson of Arjun's journey. The problems you study today may become the solutions that change lives tomorrow. Education is, in and of itself, a bridge. It's the infrastructure that connects our current limitations to our future capabilities. Actually, scratch that. It's even bigger than that. Arjun didn't have steel or concrete when he was a boy, but by acquiring knowledge, he eventually gained access to the exact steel and concrete his community so desperately needed. So, I want to toss this final provocative question back to you to reflect on. What bridges are you currently studying to build for your own community? You might not be facing a rushing river, but there is undoubtedly some obstacle in your world that seems way too massive, too expensive, or just too complex to fix right now. Arjun's story proves that you don't need to have all the resources today. You just need to have the absolute dedication to start learning today. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and hey, keep building.